Thank you, Anna. So what do braking systems have in common with enterprise risk management, you ask? Let's take a look, shall we? As you can see, brakes have evolved. They started in the 1800s. They were first invented at that time and were very basic. They were wooden blocks and they only had one job, which is to stop the cart from moving. By the turn of the 20th century, reliability had become important, and modern brakes, which came in effect in the 1960s, were all about efficiency. As we hit the 1990s, the self-explanatory electronic stability control brakes came into effect. They controlled and modulated the braking force of the vehicle. This braking system gave more control to the driver, and especially during cornering. At this point in the evolution of brakes, the emphasis was on safety. However, the most advanced braking systems are used in hybrid and self, but they also take into account what is around them and what lies ahead on the road. So over time, brakes have moved from just stopping the vehicle. Today, the most advanced braking systems are adaptive. They are part of the vehicle's ecosystem and work with the vehicle to improve energy efficiency, or above just enabling self-driving vehicles and enabling the vehicle to stop. So if you look at brake systems, they are the reasons why cars can drive very fast at high speed on multi-lane motorways, with every driver and passenger feeling safe and confident that they will reach their destination. They've given drivers and passengers confidence and fostered trust. You could say that braking systems enable the movement of goods and people around the world. They actually enable economies. So you can say that braking systems actually drive economic growth. Now, let's talk about enterprise risk management. The beginning of enterprise risk management was characterized by managing and stopping risk, which, as we all know, is actually quite impossible. But it was about transferring the risk from the enterprise to the insurers. As you can imagine, as businesses grew, complexity grew, the risk became higher, and therefore trying to insure every single risk of the enterprise became unaffordable, and companies had to find different ways of ensuring that they manage their risks. So if you look at the evolution of enterprise risk management, it has evolved from just being an insurance-based, and then in financial risks. In the 2000s, we started to see the formalization of risk management frameworks through various bodies around the world. The integration of enterprise risk management began to emerge in around 2005. By about 2020, risk management had to focus on resilience, meaning that the enterprise needed to survive whatever risks that were around it. It needed to make sure that it's got business continuity plans as an organization. Therefore, risk management then had to be predictive. But as you enter your 2024, the current era, we're beginning to see the emergence of next generation enterprise risk management, which is not only a tool to manage risk, but is also an enabler of growth for the business. It also, if done right, it can actually begin to give out there by way of opportunities, and therefore it just doesn't reduce risk. It's just not an advisor and a steward, but it's beginning to see what opportunities are available. And therefore, interesting thing, which I hope you have noted, is that the gap in evolution of enterprise risk management the gap in the time span has become shorter and shorter. And of course, this is not surprising because, as you know, the World Economic Forum releases its global risk report annually, and you can see that the complexity that businesses, especially global organizations, have to operate in has actually become quite complex. The risks that have been called out are not just related to financial risks. We're beginning to see, and we've seen this over time, issues related to the planet, extreme weather events, biodiversity, which is being lost, natural disasters, which as we speak, we're seeing more and more of those. We're beginning to see the gap between the have and the have-nots beginning to widen, and the income inequality becoming bigger, and which leads in some instances to social unrest. And many pundits will tell you that if nothing changes as far as that's concerned, the world is going to become a lot more uncertain, a lot more volatile because of social unrest. Throw into that technology disruptions. We're beginning to talk about AI. Because of geopolitics, we're also beginning to see cybersecurity vulnerabilities. So the world has become quite complex. The World Economic Forum has got recommendations that they're giving to organizations like having social responsibility programs, diversification of strategies. That's absolutely key, as well as making sure that there are ways for us to anticipate and prepare ourselves for future pandemics as we move forward. So if you look at embedding risk practices successfully, given the context that I've just spoken about, especially for global organizations that are very complex in nature, it can actually become quite challenging. And some of the pitfalls that we begin to look at is, are there outdated perceptions of risk management within the organization? Is risk management seen as something that sits in a corner and does what it does, doesn't talk to people? And does the risk management function itself sees itself as the police and tells the organization what not to do, as opposed to enabling? And of course, fragmentation of the ownership of risk and the accountability becomes a problem because, as I say, risk continues to be seen as outside of the organization, like that wooden block that was used to stop, those carts of the 1800s from moving. If that's the perspective of the risk management function, of course, we begin to see that it does not become effective. So communication, collaboration becomes important. And of course, making sure that there is intelligent data, intelligent information, and analytics to enable the business. Without that, you begin to see reports that actually are meaningless and insufficiencies as far as analytics are concerned. And of course, executive buy-in is very important. The organizations that I think will succeed are those that actually see risk management or the embedding of risk management at an executive level, with the CEO being a sponsor of risk management. So in the age of intense disruption, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, as well as everything that's happening in the world as we speak, the success of making intelligent and informed risk decisions, which embeds risk management, and risk management is seen as part of the enterprise. There are various approaches to embedding risk management, of course, in organizations. Organizations are different. Some are, national organizations, they don't have a global presence. The ones that are global, they have complexity in that they've got various business lines. And even when they are global, you start to look at different regulations, so that there's a lot of complexity. So I would like to position to say that not only should risk management sit at the top of the organization, but it does require to have various governance structures. You do need to have an audit and risk committee that's strong. And because the nature, and in most organizations, audit and risk committees tend to have a financial focus. If you can have a risk and compliance committee that actually supports the Audit and Risk Committee, and gives focus to all things related to risk. And having been given the mandate by the Audit and Risk Committee, I believe that is one way of actually, spreading the ownership of risk and making sure that it receives the adequate attention. Of course, informal forums within the organization becomes quite important, especially, as I say, in a global organization. So if you're looking at the various risk pillars, data privacy and protection, integrity and business conduct, you're looking at insurance, for instance, it's important that you've got subject matter experts that not only sit at the center of the organization and collaborate with the center to ensure that there is up and down communication. At the top, the material risks are set, which cover the entirety of the enterprise. And then, of course, you'd have your bottom-up risks that are located and specific to a country or a region or a function. But that continuous loop of conversation is important for an organization to remain agile in its response and preparedness for risk. So you've got your core functions, as I said, which are set at the top and are owned by the board and the Audit and Risk Committee. You've got your common risks that are looked at regional and functional level, as I said. And of course, depending on legislation in various countries or depending a specific business, they can also have what is distinct to that. But that common and continuous conversation becomes important. And of course, then, how do you actually put the building blocks to make sure that you've got an effective enterprise risk management? It is important that the management subject experts are able to navigate the business, and they can only do that if they understand the strategy of the business in order for them to support quality growth. They do need to be advisors to the business, but at the same time, they need to be the stewards, which is protect the business and be able to say, no, we cannot do this, maybe we go this way. They also need to make sure that their decisions that they enable within the business are actually informed. Hence, data is important. Hence, tooling, which is not the be-all and end-all, by the way, becomes quite important as well. Collaboration, as I mentioned, is important. Risk teams need to be agile. They need to be flexible without compromising the business, but they need to be seen to be in support of the business and its growth. And of course, having a team that is competent, that understands what they're doing is also quite key. So the ability to attract, develop, and retain key talent is absolutely important. And of course, there's optimization that comes with that. We begin to talk about digitally enabled decision-making. So your tools become important because they enable the business to make timely decisions. And of course, having the team being integrated, as I mentioned, becomes important. And fit for purpose is important. Depending on the industry that you're talking about, your risk management function can be quite prescriptive because it's highly regulated. But in some instances, you could have a descriptive model that says, these are the things that you should be having in place, and we'll work with you and pivot and change as circumstances change. So we do not dictate, but we give those frameworks and we define the standards. How do you then make sure that you actually have the structure of risk management to do the things that I've spoken about? In my view and in my experience, the organization I work for, what we've done is we've created a group function. These are, we call it the center of excellence, for lack of a better word. We believe that we've got a very strong team of people who know what they're doing. They define, obviously, the strategy, the frameworks, the policies, they monitor, they report, and they share knowledge with the business. But most importantly are the business partners. These are people that actually sit within the business itself, be it regions, our facility for risk management at the first line and part of the cell also fulfills a second line of defense And that's a shared responsibility between the group function and the business partners. And there is continuous communication between the group function and the business partners. And the ownership of risk is shared. It doesn't just sit with business. It absolutely doesn't sit with the central function, but is something that is owned, co-owned, and solutions are co-created between the group function and the partners who sit in the business. Local expertise is important. As we say, the people at the center understand risk. They understand policies, processes, and frameworks. They do understand the business, but they're not at the coalface. The people that actually have the local expertise are the business partners. They're the people that will enable your agility and your sustainability. And the model that we've put in place, you also don't have to create subject matter experts at each level of the operation. You have it at the center, supported by the business partners in the organization. Some key considerations, which I think we've learned and from our own learnings and engagements where we've made mistakes, is that risk management obviously cannot and should not be an isolated function. That is absolutely key. So incorporating risk management into the business strategy and the day-to-day operations is absolutely critical, and it's key. And understanding how risks impact each other, because they're not standalone. If you look just at the World Economic Forum list of risks, most of those risks are independent. They actually influence each other, they impact each other. So you do need to have that holistic view of the universe, right, as well as a holistic view of the overall business. Collaborative risk governance is important. I've spoken about teamwork, cross-functional engagement, group and business partner engagement, and continuous conversation as being absolutely key. And of course, making sure that not only do you rely on your formal governance structures, but you've got various formations within the group itself, like the various forums that you have in place to look at various risk pillars and find and co-create solutions together for implementation by business. So that both the formal and the informal interaction is absolutely key. But the most important thing, especially if you're a global organization, you've got complexity and you've got the various structures, is to be absolutely crystal clear about the roles and responsibilities that sit at the various levels, because that's the only way you can foster accountability and to make sure that things that are supposed to happen when they should happen and at the level and the quality that they should happen at. And of course, you know, I've spoken about intelligent decision making and that tools are important and they can be as basic as anything, as long as they are there, as long as all the other structures that underpin effective risk management are there in the organization, we believe it can actually work. So risk management is not just something that says no, it's not just a defense. I call it the new terrain of economic struggle or competitive struggle. Our clients are expecting us to do certain things. They expect us to actually produce proof of being able to do those things. So risk management can actually be a significant value driver and differentiator for any organization. So going back to my original question. So what do braking systems have in common with risk management? They've both evolved. They both protect. They both enable movement. And they work better if they are within the organization and you approach integrated risk management and you embed it in your business operations, and it is done by design, not by grudge, but by design, because the value that you actually bring is clear to generation of insight. It's absolutely important. I spoke about regenerative braking systems are currently in place, that those vehicles are very, very sophisticated machine, but they're forever scanning the environment and they're looking at how efficient the car is, and they begin to contribute to efficiencies of the vehicle itself. And the competitive advantage is there. I mean, all of us want to be able to sit in a car that actually has very strong brakes. It can enable you to move faster. Similarly, organizations need that because the competitive advantage. So at first glance, you could say that brakes are only solely designed to stop a car. However, consider this: when a driver enters a vehicle, a stationary vehicle, your brakes are actually useless. They provide little or no benefit. Their true value lies in enabling acceleration, allowing the vehicle to move swiftly. Brakes empower drivers to press down on the gas pedal with confidence so that the vehicle can move faster. Similarly, long-term effectiveness of a corporate risk management function isn't solely about avoiding risk and saying stop and no. It's about creating a framework that enables the organization to take reasonable risks, knowing that the safeguards are in place to mitigate significant risks and allow the company to act with confidence. Risk capital seeks innovation executed by a strong management team within an aggressive culture that tolerates some mistakes but avoids reckless abandon in an organization. So like brakes, risk management enables acceleration while maintaining control. Thank you.